Hi, folks. Welcome back to Money and Politics Now. Appreciate you joining me. I know it's December the 20th as I record this. I first want to apologize. I haven't been able to do some of the stories that I wanted to do or recordings of late. Probably like a lot of you, if you're trying to take off some time, which I typically do between Christmas and New Year's because there's nothing going on that week business-wise anyway, at least in my business typically, that I take that off, and that means, of course, that I have to front load all the work I would have done between that time I take off. So I have to do about 2 weeks worth of programming for the other channel, and my programming is also aired on cable stations around the state of Illinois. So it just means that, like a lot of you, between trying to get your workload out, trying to go some Christmas shopping, and I also had a great time Saturday night going to a party. So just a long way of saying it gets to be busy, obviously, around the holidays for all of us. And it's not that I've been purposely ignoring you. I like talking about this, which is why I wanted to start the channel to begin with. So let's take a quick look. Nothing happened price-wise with Humble today. We had 3.6 million shares traded, and we started the day where we ended it. The markets are down. One thing I wanted to say is I think that this is a buying opportunity for a number of stocks. I talked not too long ago about putting together a buy list. The Omicron COVID variant is, by all accounts, and, you know, I try not to opine about these things that I don't really have a feel for. I'm not a medicine guy. But the reports I see are that it's mild. There's been, I think, no deaths reported from what I saw. And it's apparently a little bit like having a cold. You might get a fever, you might get a runny nose, but fortunately, that's good news. To the extent that we're getting these crackdowns by some government in places like New York, where the outgoing mayor is cracking down, and some other efforts, I'm going to say I don't think, again, if someone wants to say I'm wrong, that's fine, but I'm just going by what the reports are. I don't think that's warranted. I think the market is overreacting on this news, and that's creating a buying opportunity. The market, and I've said this before, is not logical. There have been books written about how the market is logical, and it's not. Just look at your own example. Look at how you get emotionally tied up in when stocks like Humble, when it goes up, you're feeling great. When it goes down, you're feeling horrible. And you're far more emotionally driven in many cases than necessarily logically driven, which I have on the Humble story tried to say throughout the year, we got to wait for things to happen. By the way, as long as I brought that up, things are happening. Things are continuing to advance with Humble. And in response to a comment the other day, someone was saying how they're down like 80%, and when are things going to pick up? I was saying we have to have the revenues, and in a meaningful way. And by that I meant when we got the third quarter earnings, the ticketing and the NFT gallery had just been added like 10 days before the end of the third quarter. We are going to get around Valentine's Day, the fourth quarter earnings. We will have the whole quarter to look in the fourth quarter. What did they do on NFTs? What did they do on ticketing? Was it to expectations, above expectations or not? And as we move in then to the first quarter earnings report, which will come out maybe around May 10 to May 15, that'll be the first earnings report for the first quarter of 2022. Then we can have 2 full quarters of those product lines being available to compare how did the first quarter do to the fourth quarter. All right, so you know the time that we need here is it's going to take a little while, and that's going to happen. Now, what could happen in the meantime? In the meantime, which I also said, you could always have some announcement coming out from Humble and it would be bringing out some news that we didn't know. It could be a new deal. It could, with South America, as we know, Brian was just recently down in Santiago, Chile. So what deals? Maybe a ticketing deal he wants to buy, as he mentioned to me when we were in Nashville. Not just me, I mean, he's made it known. He wants to buy another ticketing company if he can find one at a good price, and in North America. So they'll balance out with Tickery. Anyway, the bottom line is news can break, and that can change the price. It'll also mean that we're going to be seeing evidence of Humble continuing to build. And with that, here's some news today. Humble launches ACH integration within Humble Pay mobile wallet. And it says here that Humble announced today, this is December 20, that ACH integration is now live within the Humble mobile wallet. With this new feature, consumers can attach their U.S. bank accounts to their Humble Pay mobile wallet to load balances and perform multiple functions, such as earn interest of up to 7% on digital assets, buy and send up to 20 different digital assets, buy, send, and peg to stable coins such as USDC, send gasless, and that means no fees there, gasless digital asset payments between Humble mobile wallet customers. So there you go, the P2P. And that point, without the fees, you know, different industries create these different terms, and sometimes we don't know what they're talking about. So the gas cost there is referring to it's a fee attached to stablecoin payments. And Brian Foote said, we see two major unlocks ahead for global blockchain adoption. One is simplifying blockchain use cases for customers, and the other is connecting traditional financial institution accounts to mobile wallets like Humble. The ACH integration feature is a positive steps in both areas. Additional Humble Pay wallet features now under development include the addition of other digital assets such as Blocks, which is the stable coin that Brian is associated with in a separate DAO, and Blocks ETXs, which provide algorithmically driven index, active, and thematic strategies for digital asset investing. We have covered, of course, over the months. In fact, I'm behind. I wanted to do a follow-up with some of those who are trading the ETXs and see how they have been doing. So what's that mean? It's more development, folks, of Humble coming along and bringing out the products that they said they would be doing. Now, as I have said, let's take a look at some other stocks, and the top one, of course, that I've often said that is one of my big favorites is I want to take a look at this InMode. I, again, think we've had a downturn recently. Let me go to 5 days here, because we got down the other day to below 65 momentarily. You can just see this little blip. I can't get to go in, but it's 63. Did it even touch 62? If it did, it might have just for a couple of minutes. But you see, it's been at about the roughly $64, $65. So we were down a bit today, but we are, oops, I got the wrong button pushed. Anyway, my point is, you can see we're up in after hours. The fourth quarter for InMode, like Humble, is going to be at the end of this year. And so we are going to get revenue projections. I think that we are going to have for InMode, and look at this, the dots here, how they kept beating the expectations. Now we got the fourth quarter here. I think we are on the revenues for the year. I think we are going to have where last year, 2020, was 206 million. I think this year we are going to have 350 million. Now, the last release by the company said 347 because they typically do better, and the name is starting to get out there with each passing quarter. More people are hearing about this. More and more pension funds and all are mutual fund companies, and the big time investors, the Wall Street firms, are buying it, that I think we're going to hit 350 million in revenues this year for InMode. That's a hell of an increase from 206 million in 2020. And last year their earnings were 75 million. Where will this be if they go up to 350? I would be saying that I could see that we would have earnings, bottom line earnings of $100 million as a ballpark figure. I'm not doing the research like the analysts who follow it as closely as you know, the professional analysts do. But that would be my estimation. You buy at your own risk, but that's one of my favorite companies, and it continues to grow dramatically with good earnings. Now, let's take a quick look on Zynex. Zynex, there was a Seeking Alpha article which said that the payment structure from one of their biggest accounts was going to be reduced, the amount of compensation from insurance companies for the Zynex product. Because I have been more tied up than I wanted to be. I haven't been able to set up an interview with the CEO, which we did do in the past. Hopefully we can get a hold of him again. You see in the lower left, according to the fair value as put up by Yahoo Finance, they think this is undervalued. It was just recently, let me go to a longer chart here, that's the day chart. So we were within the last 5 days up to $10. We go over the last month and we go back there and we can see we were up in the $14 range. Last time we had Zynex come down to this price point, I remember saying at the time that if it took a year to go back to where it was a month ago. So I'm going to say that same thing. If we go back to where we were a month ago here, and if it took a year to get there, that would be up $5 from where we are now, and $5, that would be a you know, in rough terms, a 50% move or more, obviously a bit more, but 50% move. If it took a year, that would be a hell of a move. So the downside here, you know, the downside is $9.78, but I don't expect it to go to nothing. I would say realistically, the downside on this, barring some horrible news coming out that I certainly don't know about, I would say is not much from here. It could be, let's say, $8.50. Again, that's kind of just a back of the envelope analysis. But the upside, again, if they can add the kind of sales that they're looking to have, because they've added all these salespeople, you could get a pretty good pop. And this company, unlike Humble, we keep waiting because it's a startup, Humble. And so, as I said to one of the other people in a comment, the downside to buying a startup is you got to wait for it to get going and start up. This has been growing, their sales, and again, if I come down here, we can see that. Take myself out of the picture. We can see the last 3 quarters how they had exceeded their earnings. We can see as we go down further, this is what I wanted to show in green, the revenues growth. So it's not as if you're buying a company that has not had any revenues. Hopefully they can add to that. So we have, let's see, I talked about Humble, I got InMode, I got Zynex. And that's where we are. So things are continuing to develop in some of those primary stocks that we have been following. And if you want to tell me your thoughts, one thing, folks, I wanted to bring up and say, as we move forward into 2022, if you want to leave me a comment, sorry for, what would you want me, if anything, to be doing differently? You want me to cover more stocks? You want me to cover more politics? I'm always interested in, you're my audience, so I want to hear from you. Maybe you want me to cover less, excuse me. I just taped a show before this, so my throat is dry. Anyway, with that, you don't want to hear me clear my throat. I did want to say, now as I can hardly talk, thanks so much for all the views that you have given me throughout the year, starting in January, this past year. Be a year old on January 25, 2022. And, I'm always interested. Sometimes I don't have the time to put as much creative juice into the show as I'd like, but I would like to improve it from any number of ways. So that's why I'd be interested in your feedback and what you would want to tell me in that regard. So to that extent, I look forward to it. I'll have a little more time on my hands between Christmas and New Year's. It is a time when I could be thinking about some things, maybe some different graphics, maybe some different stocks. I do have a couple of ideas, but I'd like to know what you're saying, and I'll take it into consideration. If I can do it, I will. In any event, folks, hopefully I can come to you a couple more times before Christmas. But I hope you all have a great Christmas with your family and friends. In many ways, you guys are become my second family out there. It was really wonderful this year for Thomas and I to go down to Nashville to meet Brian and to meet all of you who I met, and over the internet to have met Scott in Atlanta and Allie up in Long Island and Rebecca just outside of Atlanta, and Drummer Dude and Christine down in Christine in LA. I look forward to looking and meeting so many more of you. We all hope that we're going to see some major price movement in Humble in 2022. I certainly can't promise you that. I know what you're thinking. I'm thinking the same thing. Hopefully we're going to be growing. And I want you also to, take a look at these stocks like InMode and some of the others that we take a look at. Don't forget, on places like Schwab at least, if the price of InMode is a little bit too much, you can always do a partial purchase, and on a percentage basis, your money will still be growing well. So with that, I'll let you go. Thanks as always, and hopefully again, I'll try to see you a couple more nights this week, and I hope Santa's good to all of you. Take care, folks.